Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the official launch of the Fresh Produce Market Inquiry. My name is Sipho Ngwema. I'm the head of communication here at the Competition Commission. Let me recognize members of the media, the stakeholders, policymakers, analysts and commentators that are here, and also members of the Executive Committee of the Commission, and all my colleagues who are here today, members of the inquiry itself. Without further ado, I would introduce the panel to you, but we are here today because, as I said, it's a launch of the inquiry, and this launch comes a day after we received figures with regards to inflation, and we know how these things interlinked in the work that the Commission has done with regards to essential foods and so on. But the panel, particularly the commissioners, will speak more on those. So I introduce to you now, in the middle, is the Commissioner, ladies first, Commissioner Doris Chepe. I'm sure some of you are meeting her for the first time. On her right is Deputy Commissioner Hadin Rachisusu, and on my far left is Rowan Mare, who is the Technical Director of the inquiry. More will be said about the relevant roles in the inquiry. Mine for now is to make sure that we keep everything on time and are able to engage on the issues that you want to engage on and ask the questions that you want to ask, and those will be allowed at the end of the relevant inputs. Now I will invite the Commissioner to come and also welcome you, but also speak to you more about why we are here as the Commission and why we have embarked on this road. And then after her will be the Deputy Commissioner, who will speak more on the committee itself and the work that lies ahead. Thank you very much. Over to you, Commissioner.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Brasipo. It's an absolute pleasure to be here with you this morning on the occasion of the media briefing on the official commencement of the Fresh Produce Market Inquiry. Brasipo, as the Program Director, thank you. The staff of the Competition Commission, and specifically those who are going to be forming part of the Fresh Produce Market Inquiries, members of the public, and representatives of various media houses who are here today. Good morning. You will recall that on the 28th of March 2022, the Competition Commission announced to the public its decision to initiate a market inquiry into the fresh produce markets. During that announcement, the Commission invited members of the public to provide comments on the draft terms of reference, which were also published at the time. You will know that the Act requires us, where we initiate a market inquiry, to produce draft inquiry, which essentially is the founding document of any market inquiry that we will be doing. We received valuable inputs and contribution from various stakeholders, which enabled us to take into account some of the issues raised in those contributions, and ultimately finalize and gazette the terms of reference that we did. We gazetted on the 14th of February 2023. That is, as a result of that, we were then able to come together today to finally announce the official commencement of the Fresh Produce Market Inquiry. It gives me great pleasure to do so, and quite happy that you could join us while we do so. Just as a brief background, I think it is undeniable that the agricultural sector plays an important role in South African economy for a number of reasons. First, the sector contributes approximately 2.5% towards the country's GDP. And it is one of the sectors that has recorded an increase in economic output in Q3 of 2023. And according to Stats SA, the sector contributed the largest positive contribution of approximately 19% in Q3 of 2022. And this was mainly driven by an increase in production of field crops and horticultural products. Secondly, the sector provides a great employment opportunity to a majority of the population, predominantly in peri-urban and rural areas. Approximately 5% of the country's workforce is employed in the agricultural sector, and this number is expected to increase as the demand for food grows in the country. And thirdly, the agricultural sector it has an important role to play because it ensures food security in the country. As South Africa has a growing population, as you all know, and the demand for food is expected to increase in the coming years. As such, the agricultural sector provides necessary food supply to meet the needs of the population. The current supply chain difficulties that we saw during COVID and as a result of the war in Ukraine has meant that food security in the country is quite critical. It is also crucial to note that the food and agro-processing sector has been a priority for the Commission for a couple of years, I think since 2008, if I'm not mistaken. And this is due to significant contribution to the economy broadly and its potential, as I have mentioned, to serve as a driver for inclusive growth in the South African economy. It is for this reason, ladies and gentlemen, and Program Director, that the Commission, through the Fresh Produce Market Inquiry, intends to conduct the inquiry into the fresh produce value chain in order to understand the functioning and the features of this market and see whether there may be any features or combination of the features in the market that may impede or restrict or distort competition and participation by particularly SMEs and HDP-owned firms in this sector. The fresh produce value chains that the Fresh Produce Market Inquiry will be focusing on and participation, as I've said, are broadly stated in the terms of reference that were published on the 14th of February 2023. What I'm going to briefly touch on as I introduce the inquiry, it's broadly three issues: is why the Fresh Produce Market Inquiry, why did we initiate this, the scope of the inquiry, and the announcement of the chairperson. I know we have already done this, the cat is already out of the bag, and lastly, to announce the official commencement date of the inquiry. On the first one, I think there are a number of reasons. I think I could think of three reasons why the Commission would have initiated this. There's obviously the legal reason in terms of the Act. As you know, we have to have, before we launch a market of inquiry into any sector, we have to have reason to believe that there may exist feature or combination of feature in that market which may impede, distort, or restrict competition into that market into that market. And in this case is the fresh produce value chain, across the value chain. And this may undermine the purpose of the Act, and that's why the Act requires us to then go and inquire into the market, understand the functioning of the market, and if we do make findings, then we are required in terms of the Act to try and remedy those findings that we would have made. And the reasons that we thought that these features may exist come from a number of factors. Firstly, we have been receiving several complaints as the Commission alleging anti-competitive conduct in the fresh produce value chain. You would have seen this either during COVID or even prior to COVID. You would have seen this in a number of the investigations and cases that the Commission would have taken in, particularly on inputs into the industry. And the issues on the allegations of anti-competitive conduct, we found that they were in fact they were affecting low-income consumers in the most. But secondly, you will recall that in November, I think 2021, the Commission published a concentration study, and some of the key findings of that study are that the agricultural sector in South Africa is characterized by high levels of concentration at different levels of the value chain. And as you may be aware, concentration in the market provides a base for a wide range of anti-competitive conduct in various forms. And lastly, as we started in 2020, the Commission has been conducting food price studies, and I think the Program Director actually spoke about them a little bit earlier. And the findings of these food price studies, which include fresh produce, depict an alarming level of price increases and volatility in pricing for various food products, including fresh produce. In some instances, what we found is that these prices increases were surpassing the annual inflation rate, which then raises question as to what are the drivers of such increases. And as I've stated earlier on, these increases have had a disproportionate effect on the poor and low-income consumers, who have had to spend a great deal of the portion of their income purchasing these essential products. Just going on to the scope of the inquiry, I know that on face value the scope seems a bit wide, but you would have seen that we have tried, in fact, in the terms of reference, to create some important demarcations. Firstly, at the levels of each level of the value chain that will be covered. It is important to emphasize that the terms of reference, as I've said, these are the founding document for the market inquiry, and they will provide guidance to the panel on what we need to be interrogating along the fresh produce market inquiry. There are essentially three areas that the panel will be looking at, and that's efficiency of value chain, market dynamics and impact of key inputs for growers, and lastly, barriers to entry facing SMEs and HDP producers. On efficiency of value chain, I think this theme is more focused on understanding the functioning of the fresh produce value chain in South Africa, various factors relating to the value chain, including levels of concentration, routes to market, cost of participation in the market, and barriers to entry. So when under these themes, these are some of the issues that we will be investigating. And then on the second theme, which is market dynamic, the focus will be on key inputs for growers. And as I said, this includes seeds, fertilizers, agrochemicals. And the theme is more focused at the upper level end of the value chain, and we'll be looking at concentration level, price discrimination, buyer power, and exclusivity. And this is very interesting because these are some of the issues that have been introduced in the amendments of the Competition Act that came into effect in 2019. The last theme, which is barrier to entry facing SMEs and HDP growers, will be concentrating mainly at the lower end of the value chain, and the inquiry will consider barriers to entry by small and HDP growers and issues around access to input and output markets for these growers. So I think what will happen, and the chairperson of the panel seated to my left will go into a bit of detail on this when he unpacks the statement of issue that will be released today. I just wanted to encourage members of the public, and I think from this point we do appreciate the media being here as a conduit to spreading the word, to actually engage effectively with the statement of issue that we will be publicizing today, to ensure that we get as much participation. These market inquiry work better when there is participation across all stakeholders. And so we would really appreciate it if we could spread that message. And we value the relationship with the media to be able to do so for us. The market inquiry will also release the guideline for participation to provide guidance to all stakeholders who wish to make submission. We will also be producing what we call an indicative administrative timetable for the inquiry. And this is essentially a roadmap on the timelines of the inquiry. As you know, the market inquiry has to be completed in terms of the Act in a period of 18 months. So it's absolutely key that we plan properly to ensure that all aspect of either public request for information, public hearings are planned in advance, and we get as much contribution as possible from the public. It gives me great pleasure to announce that I, as the Commissioner for the Competition Commission, have decided to appoint Mr. Hardin Rachisusu, who is the Deputy Commissioner for the Competition Commission, to chair the inquiry. And as all of you would know, the Act requires that the chairperson of any market inquiry is a Deputy Commissioner of the Competition Commission. In his address, Mr. Rachisusu will talk about the technical team, which is the heartbeat, essentially, of the inquiry. These are the people who will be doing the groundwork and supporting Mr. Rachisusu in that regard. He will also talk about the dates, important dates to note, and the indicative administrative timetable. But most importantly, he will go into the detail of the work and the statement, unpack the statement of issue that we will be launching. I wish Mr. Rachisusu and the technical team all the best. Just on the dates, I just wanted to confirm that the work of the inquiry will officially start on the 31st of March. It is expected to be completed in 18 months as required by the Act. At the heart of our role is that we need to ensure that these market inquiry actually conducted in a fair and transparent manner. And so both the indicative timetable and the statement of issue and the guidelines that we will be publishing provide for that framework that ensure that we do our work in line with our mandate in terms of the Competition Act. Program Director, I would like to thank you and thank members of the public and of the media, and most importantly, members of the Fresh Produce Market Inquiry team that has gotten us this far, because to get this far, there's a lot of work that actually needs to be done. The drafting of the terms of reference, the statement of issues, and they have done a phenomenal work in that regard. I wish to wish you all the best as a team as you embark on this journey, and lastly, call upon all stakeholders across the fresh produce value chain, in academia, regulatory authorities, government department, business, the South African public at large, to engage and participate in the work of the market inquiry, because it's through your participation that we will be able to come on the other end with good work and finally a report that will help us to resolve any issues that we may find in these markets. Thank you. Thank you, Program Director, and thank you all.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. Once again, thank you very much, Commissioner. Ladies and gentlemen, at the end of the speeches, there will be an opportunity facilitated by my colleague, Siabulela Makunga, on questions, clarifications, and engagement on the content of what the commissioners and the rest of the panel will be deliberating on. I think let me also take this opportunity to welcome our colleagues at the office who have joined us through live streaming, and members of the public who have also joined this, and the media. So without wasting more time, the chairperson of the commission of the inquiry, Mr. Hadin Rachitsutu, who's also, as mentioned earlier, the deputy commissioner at the commission, is now going to address you on the issues regarding the technical aspects and other related issues with regards to the workings of the inquiry. Over to you, TC.
Program Director, staff of the Competition Commission present here, the Executive Committee of the Competition Commission, Commissioner of the Competition Commission, Ms. Doris Tsepe, members of public and representatives of various media houses. Greetings to you all. My role today is very brief, because I am required to chair this inquiry as a pathfinder, if I may say it that way. So I do not have any particular views about what is going on in this market. My role is to ensure that, as the Commissioner has said, is to run this inquiry in a transparent manner, in a way that we understand the market and identify, if any, distortions that could be inhibiting competition in this market. The Commissioner has provided an overview of the inquiry, including the rationale for the Commission to undertake this huge task and the intended objectives. I'm not going to labor on the matters that the Commissioner has already addressed in her opening remarks. My intention in this address is to provide an overview of issues that the inquiry will be focusing on, as demarcated by the terms of reference and crystallized in the statement of issues, which will be published later today. I also intend to provide an outline of the process that will be followed in this inquiry. In the terms of reference, the main objectives of the inquiry is to identify features or combination of features that inhibit or distort competition and participation in the fresh produce value chain. Where there are competition and or public interest issues, the inquiry will provide recommendations to foster competition and ensure equitable and meaningful participation in the value chain for the benefit of all stakeholders as well as consumers in the economy. For each of the themes that are mentioned in the terms of reference, the statement of issues outlines the issues that will be explored and asks various questions linked to those issues. I will then proceed to provide a high-level summary of these issues that will be canvassed under each theme. Of course, a detailed list of issues will be available in the statement of issues once published in the Commission's website. The Commissioner has already provided the overview. I will be quite brief on these issues. So the first area of focus is the efficiency of the value chain, with an emphasis on the dynamics around fresh produce market facilities. Under this theme, the inquiry will address various issues linked to the efficiency of the fresh produce value chain. Program Director, I hope I can proceed. I hope this will not affect maybe the audio. And apologies for the technical glitch. I was trying to observe as he was moving around. The system looks very sophisticated. So I realized that no matter what, maybe I think I can do as the chair of the inquiry, I was not going to be able to intervene. but we do apologize for that. As I was saying, I started to sort of talk about the first theme of the inquiry, and what we'll do there is to focus on true broad market access phenomena. So, firstly, the inquiry will look at the national fresh produce markets as a route to market for farmers and asks fundamental questions about access, role of market agents, costs associated with selling through these platforms, price discovery process, and barriers to entry. Secondly, the inquiry will look at direct contracting between farmers and retailers, wholesalers, and processors as a route to market. The inquiry intends to understand the basic conditions of entry into various contracting arrangements, price determination, and costs associated with contractual arrangements, including associated terms and conditions. The second area of focus of this inquiry, as the second theme, is market dynamics of key inputs and their impact on producers. There are various issues that the inquiry will investigate under this theme. These issues emanate from observations about input markets where majority of inputs are imported. Fertilizers is one such example. Therefore, disruptions in the global supply chain may to an extent affect accessibility and pricing of these key inputs in South Africa. In addition, there are structural concerns arising as input markets are especially concentrated with few firms operating. The inquiry will therefore look at issues linked to concentration, access to inputs, pricing, and barriers to entry and expansion at this level. The third and final area of focus is barriers to entry facing SME and HDP producers. These are historically disadvantaged individuals or persons. Under this theme, the inquiry will assess various issues concerning smallholders and or HDP farmers when interacting with various stakeholders in the value chain, such as input suppliers and output markets. Issues related to access to critical inputs such as finance or credit, fertilizers, seeds, and various agrochemicals will be interrogated. Participation of smallholder farmers or HDP farmers in various value chains will be assessed under questions related to market access, discriminatory practices, access to credit or finance, and access to water. These three main areas of focus are set out in the Statement of Issues, which contains a set of 10 annexures, with each tailored to a specific issue and guide the stakeholders' response. I want to encourage stakeholders, as I join the Commissioner, to carefully engage with and respond to the Statement of Issues, which will be available on the Commission's website later today, and of course other things being constant. An important aspect which is crucial in this briefing is related to the produce that we have selected for this inquiry. As you are aware, the fresh produce landscape in South Africa encompasses a wide range of produce. The inquiry will focus on selected fruits and vegetables that are representative of the fresh produce value chain for the purposes of the inquiry. So we have 5 fruits: apples, citrus, bananas, pears, and table grapes. 6 vegetables: potatoes, onions, carrots, cabbage, tomatoes, and spinach. As I said to you, I don't know much about what's happening in these sectors. I just know that these are the products we should be looking at. The identified fruits and vegetables account for at least 70% of production and sale of this produce throughout South Africa. And I now tend to deal with matters related to stakeholder participation in the inquiry. There are various ways in which stakeholders can participate in the inquiry. Stakeholders can respond to the statement of issues, participate in public hearings, which could be online or on-site, and make written submissions to the inquiry. Importantly, confirmation about the dates and venue for public hearings will be communicated beforehand. As the fresh produce under consideration covers all significant agriculture hubs in South Africa, these public hearings will be held in a number of provinces, particularly Limpopo, Mpumalanga, Free State, Western Cape, as well as Gauteng. But we'll endeavor to cover almost all provinces where this produce is farmed, so that we can engage directly with the farmers in those areas, processors, and everyone who consumes or produces these products. So some stakeholders will be sent a request for information directly in due course. So there are stakeholders that we've identified up front. So those stakeholders have to respond to the statement of issues. We will also be asking specific questions, particularly around pricing and costs. I think this is quite detailed information that will require. The guidelines for participation in this inquiry will also be available on the Commission's website. So where stakeholders have queries regarding participation or any other matter, they are welcome to contact the inquiry technical team, which I'll introduce next. So the team in the main will constitute the Commission's employees. We will also retain experts from outside. In the main, the team will be led by Mr. Ruan Mare, who is over there, and Mr. Mukhao Apane, who is seated over there. The technical team will be responsible for the day-to-day running of the inquiry. Mr. Ruan Mare will be the technical head of this inquiry, and all correspondence should be directed to him. We'll provide an email address to that effect. As the Commissioner said, the inquiry will officially start on the 31st of March 2023 and is planned to be completed within 18 months thereafter. The following are immediate dates or events that are important. As I've said, we shall publish the statement of issues on the inquiry's website today. We shall publish the indicative administrative timetable and guideline for participation, and we shall be issuing specific requests for information to certain stakeholders. So this will happen hopefully on the 31st of March as we commence this inquiry. All affected stakeholders, including those that will receive specific questions, are required to respond to the statement of issues. The success of this inquiry depends on the participation and full cooperation of stakeholders. Whilst the questions require some time for stakeholders to complete, it is a necessary step in the inquiry to ensure that the inquiry obtains information and facts to fully understand the state of competition and any factors that could impede or distort competition in the fresh produce market in South Africa. The inquiry has also been busy at work. The technical team already has prepared for us frequently asked questions and fast facts. I think that has been included in your packs. This is to assist stakeholders in understanding the various aspects of this inquiry. And with that being said, I want to take this opportunity to thank everyone who made it for this briefing today. Thank you very much, and we will see you soon, hopefully, as we embark on this very, very important inquiry in our country. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Deputy Commissioner. And before I invite Sia, who's going to conduct the questions, and I think is also going to be getting some questions from people on live streaming, so we'll be coordinating those questions. I just want probably Ruan just to fill one gap, if possible. I know I'm ambushing you. Just to say, how did we reach the journey towards identifying those fruit and veggies that we are going to be concentrating on, and then I'll hand over to Sia.
Thank you, Program Director. Good morning, colleagues, and ladies and gentlemen from the media. So, yes, we'll cover some of this in the FAQs or in the question session. I think it was important to clarify this aspect because fresh produce, as the chairperson mentioned, is a broad category that has many different types of commodities. How does the Commission then understand each and every commodity without taking forever? So it was important for the Commission to, in order to curtail the scope of the inquiry and make sure we can finish in a reasonable time frame, to pick some commodities and say, how are we going to focus on those? And the approach we took, by the way, that set out completely and fully in the statement of issues. All the data, all the facts, all the figures are in the statement of issues. You can refer to that. But I think the main point we want to make today is that we took an objective approach. So we looked at production figures, sales figures. We looked at certain objective criteria, the availability of research, of data. There's no use in us picking a commodity that there's no research on, that there's no data on. How does the Commission then assess, in an objective manner, assess that commodity? So we devised a list of criteria. We looked at what's available in terms of those criteria, and then we selected the fresh produce, so the fruits and vegetables. After doing that, we did a sensitivity check on seeing, well, how much coverage is there, to make sure, well, we don't pick commodities that, very few persons buy or purchase, or there's very little trading that goes on for that commodity. And that's what the Deputy Commissioner and Chairperson acknowledged, that about 70% of, whether you look at it from a production perspective, so what is farmed or what is sold, or then consumed, purchased by the public, about 70% of the products we chose is covered. Which is, a vast majority. So we're not leaving out much, but it still allows us to curtail the scope. I think that covers it. Thank you, Program Director.
Thanks, Ruan. Ladies and gentlemen, as far as I understand, all the relevant documentations that have been mentioned here are being uploaded as we speak on the website. And secondly, the speeches will be circulated. I think they are being circulated now to all the attendants and people on our database. I now hand over to Sia to conduct the questions and clarifications.
Thank you very much, Program Director. A very good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Commissioner, if we were in the world of tenderpreneurship, I would say this is what we call a back pass from a colleague in that space. I don't think it was necessary for me to come here and conduct this facilitation, but I am accepting ichoncho from my colleague. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Siyabulela Makunga. I am the spokesperson for the Competition Commission of South Africa. Maybe, Commissioner, it's important that I tell you why am I wearing this colorful scarf. I happened to join the Commission on the 1st of June 2020. And one of the things that I had observed, Commissioner, this is a national asset. It is the pride of the nation. They deny this, but allow the newly appointed deputy chair to run with this process, because this is one of the inquiries that is the closest to our communities, especially the emerging sector. Commissioner, I was once in the agri sector before I joined the commission. I was talking to a former colleague outside. I was not aware, Commissioner, that contrary to a popular view, citrus is not actually dominant in the Western Cape. They have said to me, we must just go up the north to Limpopo and see what we're talking about. Ladies and gentlemen, I think the only reason why I was called here is to facilitate this session. And with your permission, Commissioner, I do want to extend an apology, a sincere apology to my colleagues for the 11th hour notification. But again, we do extend a heartfelt gratitude that you heeded the call. This is a matter that we believe is in the national interest, and we should all work together in ensuring that we spread the word. Commissioner, you have dealt with the prescripts and the genesis and overview of this inquiry, but also you have set the date firmly that it starts on the 31st of March 2023 and ends in 18 months. But also in your address, you have also ensured that we make the call clearly to members of the public and stakeholders to engage and participate. And I think that is a message that today we would like to send out to the public. DC, you were very firm in confirming your independence and impartiality in dealing with this exercise. And I think my colleagues are going to follow up on that. Rowan, you were very helpful in really talking to the not only the legal prescripts, but also how did we get here. And I think, colleagues, as we frame our questions, I would like us to follow that flow of transmission of information. So one of the reasons why I'm here is to remind you that the rules of the game remain the same. So my colleagues are going to assist me with the microphone that is going to be circulating. So you introduce yourself, the media house that you represent, and for the first round, I think we must keep it to a maximum of 2 questions, because I also have colleagues on the WhatsApp group who are streaming live. So I would like to give them an opportunity to answer, also to ask questions. Colleagues, may I please have, by indication of hands, who would like to start? I have one hand on my left. Please proceed.
My name is Karin Creer. I'm a journalist of Landbou Weekblad. That's an Afrikaans agricultural magazine for farmers. I would like to know, in the past, when you worked in the food sector, how good was the collaboration? How willing were people to participate? And what is legally the powers to request information of the Commission?
That's one question. Any other colleagues before I visit my colleagues on WhatsApp? Well, there's a hand, Eyewitness News.
Veronica Makhwadi here from Eyewitness News. I just wanted to ask in regards to the inquiry, I hear that it will be speaking to different stakeholders, farmers included as well as consumers. We'll be also tackling the retail sector and essentially how they come up with their prices, and also how much engagement will also be done with hawkers, the ones that we find, whether it be at taxi ranks or along the robots, and just how much input will they have in this inquiry?
Colleagues, any other? Going once, going twice. I'm going to now allow the panel with the discretion of the chairperson. Who should go first? Commissioner, I don't know if I've breached the protocol.
In fact, these are actually very technical questions, and I think the chairperson of the inquiry.
Thank you very much. I was worried about my job, Commissioner.
Yes. Okay, all right. Thank you very much for that and for those questions. Indeed, I think when we look at investigations of the Competition Commission, like a market inquiry of this nature, we do invoke full powers allowed in the Competition Act, so we can request. So the first approach is a voluntary request for information. As I've said, we'll send information requests. There's a statement of issues. But of course, if there isn't much cooperation, so for those specific stakeholders of interest, we can then invoke formal powers. So we can summon these stakeholders to submit information and to appear before the Competition Commission. And that power in the Act vests with the Commissioner. So that's why she's here today. So she's the one sending those very strong letters if there's no cooperation. So it's important to note this. And indeed, maybe on the value chain, I think you asking a very important question. Maybe we did not go into detail on this, but what this inquiry will be looking at is really the entire value chain. So from input all the way to the consumer. So when you look at pricing, for example, there's a pricing dynamic. We look at the price that a farmer charges for a particular produce, say apples as an example, what the market charges or what the retailer charges. As you know, there is a concern that prices are quite volatile in South Africa for this fresh produce, but we don't really know what's causing that. So we need to understand, pricing from the retailer. So the retailers are a very important part of this inquiry, because this is where all these products, I just jokingly say, I don't know this product, but these products, you find them in these major retail centers. How are we going to engage the informal sector? It's very important this for market access, this question that you're asking, because I don't think it's ideal that we still have a situation in the country where people are selling fresh produce under the sun in the corners. It affects their viability. That produce cannot last. What we need to do is to engage the informal sector, understand the challenges they face. Because if we are progressing, if the market is developing, we should be seeing some formality or formalization, of these. So, because this is probably an area that could introduce competition to your formal retailers. So we will definitely, I think our teams will be on the ground. They will engage with all sectors of society. They will go to the national fresh produce markets. They will meet buyers, of the fresh produce in that space. We need to understand the prices they're getting, the challenges they face. Is an infrastructure an issue for them? They will probably tell us. So I think we will make even this hearing as more accessible as possible, so not too adversarial, such that any person can participate in this process. They can appear before the inquiry, they can share their story, they can tell us their experiences without going through the legalese. This is the benefit of a process we have at the Competition Commission, and you might have picked this up in a number of inquiries that we have undertaken, that we make processes simpler and accessible as possible. We will reach out ourselves into those provinces. So thank you. I don't know, Commissioner Ruan, you want to add?
I thought just to that point you made towards the end, that the aim is to actually go hold some of the hearings we will be conducting in various provinces where we can in fact engage with the various stakeholders wherever we find them, because this market is quite vast, and we thought that would be quite helpful. But I think, as Hadin says, that's a very important question that we need to ensure that all our stakeholders, including at a retail level, the ones that are engaging with the consumers, are listened to. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, Commissioner, and members of the panel. I did promise that I have my colleagues on the WhatsApp group. I've got about 4 questions that are coming from that end. The first one is from my colleague, Catherine Child, from Business Day. The inquiry is costly for the fruit markets and farmers and retailers involved. So surely it adds to food costs rather than drops them. That's the first question. I hope it's well captured. The second question is from Duncan Masiwa from Food from Zanzi. At the end of the 18-month inquiry, what does the Commission hope to achieve? So that's the first question from Duncan. The second question, and once the process is complete, what is the next course of action? She also suggests that stakeholders have been identified upfront. Who are those stakeholders? Last one from Catherine, she just posted now. Food prices rose globally due to the Ukraine war and increased cost of fertilizer, as well as weakened rand. Is it necessary to subject the whole sector to an inquiry? Cause food prices rose globally. So that's the last question. I can repeat if it's not well captured. Okay. I take it, colleagues, this is the last round of questions. I do note that there is a question from a stakeholder. I need guidance, Chair, because this session is only for the media, but we don't mind to have an interaction, Ruan. Mr. Lukanya is from the Sisters Association of South Africa. So I think he might want to have a one-on-one discussion with you. Chairperson, please proceed.
No, thank you. Thank you very much. And thanks for these questions. Why this inquiry and why we invoke the powers in terms of the Competition Act? I think the Commissioner gave a very detailed outline of the observations the Commission has been making in terms of dynamics of competition in fresh produce. And the tracking of these prices, I think the Commission has been releasing a quarterly report on food prices. And if you look at the fresh produce, you see a lot of, as I've said before, a lot of volatility that is unexplained. And it is an inquiry of this nature that can help us understand what is actually driving the kinds of prices or pricing outcomes that we see in the market. An inquiry, like any regulatory intervention, comes at a cost. You know, it does require time of stakeholders to participate. It requires the resources of the Commission to be deployed in these activities, and these are public resources, and we do acknowledge that. But we have a duty as the Competition Commission that where we think there are some distortions in the market, we have to investigate. We don't want to make sort of unfounded, statements about markets. We have been monitoring this, but we cannot tell you now what is actually going wrong in these markets in South Africa. And this is the basket that we have chosen. It's a basket. In fact, it does not only affect the people at the bottom end, but it affects those the hardest, the poorest. It does affect the middle class. It does affect the upper class. I don't think everyone is immune to the kinds of, I suppose, volatility that we see. So, but it is for this inquiry to really investigate, and we do our best to minimize the cost to the fiscus. We do our best to minimize the cost to stakeholders, but we do encourage stakeholders to participate. As you can see, we don't take these decisions lightly. I suppose Commissioner can speak more about this. What happens about the external factors? How do external factors matter for us, or should we just stand back and say, well, the price of fertilizer is increasing, we see the transmission we see in the domestic market? These are questions that we don't know. We need to understand for ourselves. Is this a full transmission of some exogenous shock on a fertilizer, or is there some exploitation in the value chain? You can only understand that if you do a detailed investigation. I can tell you every day price of bananas goes up. I get a call or a complaint. Prices of bananas have gone up yesterday, tomorrow, whenever, or table grapes. But it is not for the Commission just to intervene at every complaint you get. So we have to take some time and understand what is actually happening in these markets. And that's why this inquiry is there for this, and it's for stakeholders to participate and enrich the process. What are the next steps after the 18 months? It's a very important question, because now with the enhanced mandate, in fact, this is it will be the second inquiry we are embarking on with the enhanced powers of the Competition Act. So the online intermediation platforms inquiry will be concluding that soon. And what could happen is that if there are distortions, the Commission or the inquiry has a duty to remedy those distortions. And the recommendations, insofar as they relate to businesses, they are binding. That's why the participation of stakeholders is very important. If a stakeholder doesn't participate, we might inquiry might make an adverse finding against a stakeholder because maybe of incomplete information. So participation is quite crucial. So there could be a lot of things. I think there is even additional power to undo potential concentration through diverse teachers. It's a very important instrument that can be used, but it depends on the findings. So if you find that market is concentrated, you can explain maybe it's because of the structure. There is that option to look into this. Hence the importance, for stakeholders to engage with this process. It's a very, very important process. There are, I think, remedies that can come out of it, but we do not, go through this, with predetermined outcomes. We have to investigate and understand, and it's going to be a transparent process. You will see everything that we see. We will publish the submissions we get. We will publish provisional reports for you to comment, and it will be as transparent as it has to be. Thank you. So I've not covered all the points, but I think Commissioner, you can, if you can.
Thank you, Hadin. I think in my introductory remarks, I mentioned a couple of things about why we were going into a market inquiry of this nature. It wasn't just about price increases that we would have observed through the food, essential food price monitoring reports that we produce. It was also, as I initially stated, that we have seen in the concentration report that the Competition Commission issued in 2021 that there are high levels of concentration in the market. And in order to understand those outcomes, we need to actually go and understand the working of these markets. So that's quite key. But the other issue I raised also is that we have received quite a number of complaints as the Commission from the sector, and those vary from inputs as in fertilizers to the actual prices and issues of access. So I think one of the things that maybe we didn't deal a lot with is that in my introduction, I may not have emphasized, is issues of participation. And you would have seen that one of the themes that the market inquiry will be dealing with is participation by SMEs and HDP growers. Because this market is also highly concentrated, it is also, there are lower levels of participation by SMEs and HDP growers. And it's quite critical from the point of view of the Act that with that transformative mandate, we need to ensure that we look at what are the barriers to entry of SME growers and HDP-owned firms in participating in this market. So we're not only looking at just the price and what the factors may be influencing, it's across the value chain. It does, of course, impact on price. But I think I did mention that what we saw even in the price increases, some of them cannot just be explained by what is happening in the market or what the input costs may be. And so we need to understand that. And a market inquiry is a very significant tool to enable the Commission to understand the market and be able to make findings, not based on unfounded viewpoints, but actually factually what is happening in the market to understand that. The Act requires us to do so. But once we've made the findings, as the chairperson has said, we are then obliged to look for remedial actions to remedy those findings that we find in the market. And that's what we aim to achieve, just to respond to Duncan's question. The aim of the inquiry is to understand the market, look to see if there are features or combination of features that may impede, distort, or restrict the market, and if we find them, what the remedial actions would be. And in the terms of reference, we go in detail as to what are the factors that we take into account when we look at those remedial actions. And those remedial actions, as the Deputy Commissioner has said, are binding on parties, and that's why this process has to be transparent, it has to be fair, and require all the parties to participate to enrich the process, to reach correct findings and outcomes, but also to ensure that this critical sector functions in a more efficient way for the benefit of all of us as South Africans, because we do require food security. And so there are, from once the inquiry ends, what is required is that we have to produce a report. And that report is submitted to the Minister of Trade, Industry and Competition. And the report will detail all the workings of the market inquiry, any findings made, and any remedial action that may be required. But we also can make recommendations to various stakeholders, including government, including regulatory authorities, where we find that there may be, some regulatory barriers to entry or participation by various participants in the market. So that would be the outcome. And then that would then be implemented. As I said, those findings and recommendations are binding, and parties will be required to implement them, or if they are not happy with them, and as I said, this is a fair process, the Act allows for any party who's not happy with the findings of the Competition Commission to appeal against those to the Competition Tribunal. I think I've covered the broader question. I think I'll give Ruan to talk about the stakeholder question. Thank you,
Commissioner. Thank you, Commissioner. And I think the question about stakeholders, I think there's two aspects to that question. And I think the first is, why did we single out certain stakeholders to send specific requests? And secondly, who are they? I think the answer to the first one is, essentially it's a practical solution, is that the statement of issues, which the chairperson referred to, has a set of annexures with a list of questions that is open to the public. Any individual, anyone that has a voice and wants to make their voice heard can respond to the statement of issues. The questions, the annexures have the questions. They are there to guide your response, to say, well, this is what we as a commission are interested in, give us your views. So that is what the SOIs are, the statement of issues are meant to do. Broad, more generalized questions open to the public. The specific requests for information are then targeted because they require specific information, they require specific firms. So for example, data. Pricing data, sales data, that sort of thing. There's no real reason to put them in a statement of issues. A member of the public wouldn't have that data, wouldn't respond to that. Again, then the question is, who did we sort of single out? Who are we going to send these targeted requests to? Mostly in the form of organized business. As I said, that's where we want specific information that is say, well, we need sales data, we need production data, we need sort of customer data, that sort of firm-specific information. So we're reaching out directly to firms. It's a lot more efficient, it's a lot more quicker than waiting to see who responds to an SOI and then only following up after the deadline to say, well, we haven't received a response from a specific retailer, now we have to reach out. I think it's more efficient, and that's certainly been our approach, to say we're going to do them simultaneously. Publish the SOIs, and very soon after send out the request for information. Necessarily, they are designed in a way to not duplicate. And I think this links to the question from Business Day. We don't want firms to answer the same thing twice. You can do it once, either in the form of an SOI or request for information. I think the important point is that we get the information. So how we create these opportunities, either through the statement of issues or the request for information, those are tools the Commission use to get access to information. But, I mean, it can be in the form of an email even, and a specific queries. And we've had a number of those that the technical team is dealing with. Thank you, Chiefs.
Thank you very much, Ruwan. There is a last question from Catherine, but colleagues, I am sensing that there's just one last question that you want to ask. I have denied my former colleague, Lucanio, an opportunity, and in the name of transparency and fairness, I think I want you to give you that opportunity to ask the question. Lucanio from the Citrus Association of South Africa. I'm seeing some vibe that you might want to ask that very last question, because I am now wrapping it up. DC, there is a question from Catherine Child, which is about the cost implications for the inquiry. How much is this inquiry going to cost the Commission? That is a question from Business Day, Catherine Child. Lukanya, I hope you have a microphone. My colleagues, yeah, it's right behind you. We are a transparent and a fair organization. So we thought we need to exercise that. Thank you. Please proceed.
Thanks. And good morning, everyone, and good morning to the panel. My name is Lucanio Ngombisa. I'm from the CGA Grower Development Company, one of the group companies of the citrus industry. In your opening remark, Chairperson, I hear you mentioning some very interesting areas that you will cover in this inquiry in terms of access to finance and also issues related to water, and also looking at the value chain and inclusive participation of the PDIs to the value chain. The work that I do, I enable the black citrus producers in the country in terms of the support they require. So the subject areas that you've mentioned are very interested on my side, and I think they'll bring some more information in terms of what are the mitigating factors that can be applied to that, because those are the challenges that our growers face on the ground. And you also mentioned access to market access, especially to local market. In fact, I'm not sure if you will also cover the area as to say what programs are available. There's a document that I've developed on local market access for our growers. So I'm not sure that will cover what programs are available and how can our black citrus producers and other producers in the fruit industry access such market or enable them to access those markets. I know the issues around compliance and accreditation are issues that are part and parcel of those programs. But I'm just interested as to say on finance, access to finance and water issues, because there are really serious issues related to water. And I think maybe when the Commission do this inquiry, we'll really come up with something that will enable to understand what are the backlogs regarding those issues. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Lucanio. There's a bit of a glitch. Let's give it a few seconds.
I think the background, oh, yes. If you can just bear with us, I think now
you said, my former boss once said these things are from the other part of the world. I didn't want to mention.
On? Yeah. It's back on. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the questions. I hope I can proceed. Yes, yeah, let me proceed because I think those two questions are, I'll start, I think, with your question from the, on the support for SMEs and HDP, so, or emerging farmers in general. This is a theme. So that theme on barriers to entry, it's meant to investigate in particular the barriers faced by SMEs and HDP farmers. So this is an important area, and why all those issues have been listed there or mentioned is that when you do all the studies you look at, it's either access to finance, access to markets. There are some issues around access to water and some inequities there. So I think I would encourage you to really take this opportunity and participate in this inquiry. I think the issues that you are raising are firmly within the terms of reference, and I think the work that you have done, I think, could then enrich this process. So those are relevant issues. And indeed, and thank you very much, Program Director, for allowing that question. And on the question of the cost, all I can say is that we have sufficiently resourced this inquiry. We have said we have commissioned staff that is in the team, I think no less than 10 or 12 of our highly skilled and quite experienced investigators. In fact, we've taken from the cream, of the crop. But of course, Catherine probably wants to know what is the amount. Of course, we do budget like any public entity, but the budget also depends on how the inquiry runs. That's why I have the commissioner here, who is the accounting authority. So she will still have to make sure that we work within those budgets. We do not compromise the other activities of the Competition Commission. As you know, the Commission is not just doing this market inquiry. It's likely going to do more inquiries. We have more investigations that are underway, close to 70, 80 investigations, very, very significant investigations in market conduct and cartels. We constantly review measures. We are in litigation before the tribunal. So resources are not limitless, but we cannot, what I can assure you is that we have sufficiently resourced this to be able to complete our work in 18 months, based on previous experiences on other inquiries. But if you ask for the number, well, I'm not at liberty at this point to tell you exactly what is that number. But this is not, if you look broadly, the Commission's budget is roughly, R500 million. So you're not gonna see excessive spending on an inquiry of this nature. In any event, we have not done that. Of the 5 or 6 inquiries we have completed. But we can, I suppose, engage further with Catherine if she has further questions. I think we would be available to provide maybe more details where it is absolutely necessary. Thank you.
Thank you very much, DC. Colleagues, as I step off, Commissioner, did you want to? Oh, thank you very much. as I step off and inviting my colleague to come and wrap it up, we have a live crossing that we have to do. But I do wish to say to colleagues that one of the things that we're going to do is to make sure that we keep you abreast of each and every activity as per timetable. And I think that would also include the awareness campaigns that will be rolling out across the length and breadth of South Africa. So we do wish to still invite your support and cooperation. Thank you very much once more for heeding the call. Thank you.
Thank you, Sia. Thank you, colleagues. Just to add, in terms of what Sia has just said, we are going to be guided by the schedule, but we are certainly coming to the relevant local areas and will try and interact in languages that people understand and they're able to speak to us so that we get as much cooperation and information as possible. So watch your local media. Once we have released the schedule in terms of the areas where we are going to be interacting with the relevant stakeholders that the inquiry would want to extract or get information from. And lastly, sometime today, we are also going to be releasing the essential food report. You have heard today about issues of food security, the critical importance of the work that we do with regards to investigations, as we said, in food security research. Earlier we mentioned the fact that figures on inflation and how prices of the relevant products that we're talking about are skyrocketing. And therefore, these issues are very important, and we are glad that every time we've come to you with that information, we have been a conduit between us and the people of South Africa, and we appreciate the mutual dependence that and relationship that we have between us as the Commission, the media, the commentators, the policymakers, and so on. Let's continue to have that, as Sia has said, and as we embark on this journey, and many others. There are other inquiries that we are also embarking on. Remember, last week we mentioned the inquiry with regards to the media. We will be coming to you on those issues. So with regards to this particular one, there's more information that is going to come. We are going to communicate to you where we are going, when we are going to those places, and what kind of interaction do we think we are going to have with the stakeholders as we assist the team with regards to the investigations they are doing in this particular sector. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for coming. We apologize for having come to you on the 11th hour, but we really appreciate the fact that we're able to make time and engage. Now, as we wrap up, some of you are going to want one-on-ones with the panel. Sia is going to manage that process. Please speak to Sia so that he can allocate you the relevant person with regards to the relevant questions that you would want to make follow-up on. So from my side and the team and the entire commission, thank you very much once again, and hope to see you soon in one of our activities. Sia has something or two that he wants to say. We have tea outside. We probably have some snacks outside. Let's see. We'll be guided by the team in terms of refreshments. Thank you.